Munif, you've got a creative finance story I imagine you want to tell the audience. Thank you for coming in here. What do you got for us today?
This one's probably one of my favorite deals. I'm actually in the middle of it right now.
Ooh, I love it.
Yes. And it's an Airbnb arbitrage. And the setup is being 100% financed. And the story of it is the current home I live in is an Airbnb arbitrage. My buddy used to live in the back unit of this big house with a pool, and he was moving out. So I'm like, okay, let me see if I can live in the back unit. And so I call the landlord. I say, hey, do you have a new tenant? Because my buddy's moving out. And he goes, no. Would you like to apply? Sure. I'd love to apply. Where do you live? And he goes, oh, I live in the main unit, but it's too big for me. And I go, what are you paying for your mortgage? He goes, I pay $3,500. I go, why don't you let me rent both of them? I'll pay you $3,800. You'll cash flow $300. I'll live in the back unit and I'll Airbnb the main unit. He totally loved it. So we did that. And the main one brings me about $8,000 a month.
Hot damn.
And so I literally get paid to live in Phoenix. But that's not the story. That's not the creative deal.
This is how this guy's traveling all over the freaking country. No wonder he's got that money, bro. You're bringing in $8,000 a month on that deal. You're basically being paid to live in this property. You're renting out the main unit. You're living in the back unit.
Yep.
You and your beautiful wife, Love.
Well, no. So since we got married, we switched. So we put the back unit on Airbnb and we live in the
house. I love it. So you guys moved into the main house. That's freaking amazing.
Way better. But that's not the deal. The deal is he calls me last weekend and he's like, hey, I love you as a tenant. Do you want another Airbnb deal? I just bought this fix and flip and I can't sell it right now. I'm thinking about holding it. And I go, sure, no problem. It's 2 minutes away from me. Even better than the one we're in. And I talked to him. I go, Colby, I love it. Let's do it. He goes, great. I go, only thing is furnishing is going to cost me about $30,000 if we're going to do this right. So I go, I don't feel like paying out of pocket to furnish it. Why don't you finance my furnishing? How liquid are you? He goes, I'm pretty liquid right now. I go, what's $30,000 to you? I'll give you 10% of your $30,000. He goes, done. So now I have another Airbnb. I don't own it, but I'm $0 out of pocket. I just have to set it up. And this should cash flow even more than $8,000.
So I'm just pausing for a moment because there's so many different ways to get creative finance deals done, right? And in the very beginning of this Bigger Pockets book, I tell a story about an arbitrage deal. The first arbitrage deal I ever saw happen. The first arbitrage deal I ever saw happen was my mom with sewing materials. Okay, so this is, guys, this is amazing because think about what Munif and I are going to talk about a little bit more about this deal, but I want also for you guys to start thinking how many other fix and flippers right now are trying to sell their flips and they're not selling. The market's going to slow down and they're going to sit here and go, I don't want to hold the property. I'm a fix and flipper. That's not my business model. So they're going to have to refinance, hold the property. They don't want to manage it. And so there's going to be an amazing amount of arbitrage opportunities with freshly renovated houses. So my mom, a very quick story. I grew up with 12 kids in my family. So my dad was always working 2 jobs, right? And my dad, every house I ever lived in, all the way until I was 19 years old, was either purchased by my dad, sub-2, seller finance, or on a lease option. Every single one, 26 different houses. So I watched my dad do creative finance my whole upbringing, but I never looked at it as an investment opportunity. It's why I never understood it. It wasn't until later in life that I'm like, oh my gosh, why wasn't my dad doing this as an investment? My dad was like, well, I did it out of necessity to get our family big enough houses that I couldn't afford on paper because my second job was all cash. Then what would happen is as my dad was transitioning or having more babies, 12 kids, my mom would have to step in financially and help out. And the thing that my mom knew how to do is she knew how to sew prom dresses and, sew clothes for people. My mom's like a master seamstress and she didn't have the money to start. My dad's like, we're tight on cash. I can't help you. You got to figure this out on your own. So my mom goes down to like the local supply store. They're now called Michael's or Hobby Lobby, but this is too old to have either one of those companies. And she applies for a credit card. Of course, they reject her. She has no experience with credit or anything like that. And so my dad goes, Corolla, that's my mom's name. Corolla, you need to get creative. And I distinctly remember this. I was in high school. My dad says, you need to get creative. And so my mom went to somebody in our church and she used their credit card to go buy supplies at a local supply store. And she essentially arbitraged their credit card to go and get what she needed. And she then bought supplies and then she paid that person, obviously their credit card off. It's almost like I sub-2'd their credit card to go buy the stuff, or I arbitraged their credit. Essentially, I took something from somebody else and I arbitraged it into a profitable endeavor for me. And so you are taking this gentleman's house. People need to know, why wouldn't this guy just do it himself? Everybody wants to know that. It fries newbies' brains. If you went back to yourself a year prior, 2 years prior in a time machine, and you go, hey, one day you're going to be able to arbitrage a house that this, that, and the other, and this guy's going to arbitrage a second house. The first question you're going to ask yourself is, why wouldn't he just do it himself? I don't get it. And I'm going to take a guess, and I want to hear why from your perspective, but I'm going to guess that it's just not this guy's business model, and he's too busy with his own employees and his own flow and his own pipeline, his own structure, because Airbnb is another business model. Real estate, people look at it as all of real estate as the same business model, but it's actually multiple little micro business models all underneath one umbrella. So for you to switch from wholesale to fix and flip, you got to add more employees. To go from fix and flip and wholesale to Airbnb, you got to add more employees and you got to get more and more robust. It sounds like, you tell me if I'm wrong on this, it sounds like this guy, it's just not his business model.
That's exactly right. So he's 22 years old, multimillionaire, an incredible fix and flipper. He's also a realtor, and he hates management. He hates it. He's got some rentals and his property managers in place. He actually did push back a little bit when I said, hey, I don't really feel like dumping $30,000 into your house on furniture. Why don't you finance it? And he pushed back. He said, well, I could just get a property management company at 20-25%, and they would just furnish it and they would make 25% from the Airbnb income, and I'd make more money. And I said, sure, you should actually do that if you care about making a couple extra $1,000 a month. But you will be on the hook, because when the property management company, let's say they don't perform, you'll have to look at their numbers. If they need things from you, you're going to have to deal with them. If things break, you're going to have to pay those bills. I will cover everything. I will give you the convenience. I mean, look at Catalina, the one I stay in. Have I ever called you about anything? What do I do besides give you a check every month? And he took it. He was like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, because think about the velocity of your time and money, right? There's an equation there. And for people that you have to understand this is a 22-year-old man who's a multimillionaire. I think he understands a thing or two about delegation and not managing stuff. Like,
yep.
Where do tired landlords come from again? We talked about this previously. They come from people who have the inability to scale themselves out of their business. This guy that Munif is doing deals with understands, oh, if I delegate this, management to Munif and I let Munif make couple thousand or $3,000 or $4,000 a month, I can actually go do one more real estate deal every month with that same time and probably make way more money.
Exactly. That's exactly right. And for him, it was about not losing, because if he sold the flip now, he would be under maybe $100,000. I say, Colby, why don't you not lose? I'll pay down your mortgage with this, and you just focus on the next thing, and then you can sell it next year, in 2 years, or 3 years, and then you can win. Now, what he doesn't know is I'm already planting the seeds, because I know what he wanted to sell the house for. So I'm already planting seeds. Hey, like, what if I could buy it at that price, like today? Get him curious. Get him, how so? And I could buy it on seller finance.
Absolutely love it. Arbitrage is a great model. You and I own a 5-plex together. We bought it cash as we're doing the BRRRR strategy. Yep. I know you're working on another 22 unit, again, BRRRR strategy. I know you've done a lot of sub 2, a lot of seller finance deals. In fact, I bought my Gainesville sub 2 from you. So the Amy Brook house. Yeah. So I bought both those sub 2 deals from you. So what's great, what I love about this is that you're giving me something else, right? Because you're going to have people come to me and talk about sub 2 deals. I like what Caleb brought to the table. I like what Daniel brought to the table. Creative finance is not just sub 2 or seller finance. Arbitrage has an amazing, amazing opportunity for a lot of people, especially when you're brand new. What I love about what you did with this guy is that you got him to pay for the furniture costs, because for him, it's like he's weighing his options. He's like, I'm going to lose $100,000, or I invest 30 grand into a steady paycheck with a guy who already has a proven track history with me.
Yep, exactly. I pay him back. I pay him back when the lease expires. So it's
a freaking no-brainer. Arbitrage is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. Here's the pluses and minuses of arbitrage. The pluses of arbitrage are, it's very easy to get into. Like, you can jump into it without, same thing, no credit, no credentials, no cash out of your pocket a lot of times. The challenge of an arbitrage deal is that you still have to come up with money for the furniture, which in this situation, you really didn't have to. This guy paid for it. But I'd say most of the time you do. So
Yes.
where does that money come from, Munif?
Either you front it or you get a private lender.
Or a third one would be a partner. If you guys want to bring a partner in and like maybe 50-50 the cash flow, so you could do a credit card or your own cash, like Munif said, bring in a private money lender, like Munif said, or say, you know what, I don't want to pay interest to a private money lender. I'll bring in a partner and I'll partner with the deal. It kind of depends on who you are, what access to resources and capital you have. I know you being in Subto, you have access to millions of dollars of private money lenders. You can kind of pick and choose who you want to get money from.
Yep.
What would you say is the biggest disadvantage of arbitrage? There's one big thing, and you've already kind of hit it, but I want to hammer home on it.
Huge disadvantage. You don't get the benefits of ownership. You don't get the tax benefits. You don't get the appreciation. This is the biggest problem because you're putting all this work into a property, managing it, upkeeping it. So for my arbitrage deals, I tell the landlords, hey, anything up to $5,000, I'll cover it. If anything breaks, and I do an inspection beforehand, make sure everything's good. But anything up to $5,000, I cover it. Now, imagine that for 3 years. I'm fixing this guy's house. I don't own it. I don't get the benefits of appreciation. He gets all that. I don't even get the tax write-off.
This is a great conversation to talk about for a minute. I want to hammer home on this for people watching this in the future. I've done a handful of arbitrage deals, and then I realized I wanted the ownership, because here's what happens on an arbitrage deal. It helps you get in the game because it provides cash flow for you. And the argument for arbitrage is that when you're just starting out and you need all the negotiating strategies in your bag, one of the negotiating strategies is you tell the owner of the property, I'm not going to be the owner. You get all the upside of the appreciation. You get all the upside of me paying down your mortgage for you. And you get the upside of you keep all the tax benefits, which are like the three biggest parts of a property once you start compounding, because I want to get started and I want to get cash flow coming in right now. And you will, when you're newer, Munif is not newer. He's very seasoned. He's done a lot of creative finance deals. This one makes a lot of sense for him. You will have an easier time negotiating with the seller by saying, let me arbitrage and turn this into an Airbnb, a VRBO, corporate rental, those types of things. And I know a couple of people here in town that do sober living arbitrage, right? If you want to go down that road, you can go down that road. There is a tremendous advantage for doing arbitrage. And, you know, the cash flow is not $50 a month. I mean, you're making a couple $1,000s on arbitrage on Airbnb, and you can get into this fairly quickly and go, man, if I want to quit my job really quickly, you probably do 4, maybe 5 arbitrage deals and you could probably quit your job.
For sure.
Freaking amazing. You know what I love about Munif? He came to the table with a different story. I was thinking Munif was going to tell me a Subto deal or a seller finance deal, comes in with freaking arbitrage, hits me across the face with some arbitrage.
Well, I was thinking, I mean, a lot of people think that Subto is all we do. We do that, but we do more than that. We do cash and we do Airbnb. We do arbitrage. You can learn all of that here.
You become a well-rounded, full investor, right? When people say, oh, Pacey's a wholesaler, I cringe. I go, ugh! I wholesale, but I'm not a wholesaler. I wholesale, I fix and flip. I will sell notes. I will create notes. I will do arbitrage. I will do Subto, seller finance. I will buy on lease option and turn around and do a sandwich lease option on the back end. I've kind of stopped doing that just because I've gotten better at negotiating, but you can do everything in here. And cash deals are 40% of what I do. I still do a lot of cash deals. It's just that for me, I talk a lot more about creative finance because it's more fun.